What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode review for The Rising of the Shield Hero Season 2. This is episode 2, and with me, as always, I have Blue Spade.
So I sort of forgot to mention this in last week's episode. I do feel like that there were some amount of content that was cut from that first episode, particularly like, the whole confrontation between Rishia and the bow hero. There was also like several scenes that was in the light novel during that segment of the story where Naofumi does end up confronting Itsuki to pretty much like confront him about the whole situation with Rishia and stuff. And then there was another scene with Rishia interacting with Moriyasu, but apparently they took that part of the story out and then immediately just had Naofumi and the others go to where the spirit tortoise is rampaging. And same thing with this episode. I do feel like that some amount of stuff is cut unless they're gonna put some of that stuff in maybe in the later episodes. It's in regards to like a couple of the new characters we're introduced to, like Eclair, for example. She is an important character in of course the manga and the light novel, and she has like a deep history of Raphtalia's village and as such, because her last name is Sayet, which is the exact same name as where Raphtalia's village is located at.
Yeah, that's it. I could kind of understand cutting some things for time, but it does kind of sound like there are some important things that were being cut, such as like Eclair's backstory, and we do kind of get some more information about her in this episode, but maybe what they're doing is just rearranging that and putting it in a later episode, if I could guess, because like some of the stuff you mentioned does sound pretty important, so I'm not really sure why they would completely like get rid of that stuff. So yeah, hopefully that is kind of included later on. But I do remember like in the first season, there was some cut content as well. I'm not sure exactly how important some of the stuff they were cutting was, but so one of the things I was kind of annoyed about that they, not so much that they cut, but that they changed. It was more so like a change to Naofumi's character. That apparently like in the light novel, he is more he is much more I guess angry at Mine and some of the people that betrayed him than he is in the anime. And like there are some pretty like he has like apparently this dark side, I guess, in the light novel that isn't really portrayed in the anime from what I hear. So I was kind of disappointed that was kind of changed up for the anime version. I kind of wish they had maybe kept that, because it sounds like it would have been it would have made Naofumi a little bit more of an interesting character, in my opinion. If he
there's one thing I do want to point out is that Naofumi's personality is different in between the anime, the manga, and the light novel. So you're not going to see the exact. I mean, the plot points are there. It's just Naofumi's personality is slightly different in between each medium.
Oh, so it's even different in the manga too.
It's slightly different in the manga too. I do remember one scene that was cut like in the very earlier parts of season 1, with Naofumi just displaying, taking out his anger on certain things because he was framed and cast out. But I could understand why they needed to cut some of those scenes to cut for time, and they didn't feel like it was necessary.
Well, I also remember specifically like with the execution scene or whatever, like Naofumi I think in the light novel version is much more unforgiving, I guess, and not as much as he is in the anime. Like he's much more he wants to punish Mine or the king like much more than how he is in the anime. And I kind of wish they had maybe like kept that, but yeah, go ahead with what were you gonna say?
Yeah, so this leads to another thing about like why I have some concern as to this season being 13 episodes compared to how the first season was pretty much 2 cores and had plenty of time, to adapt the entire story up to that point. But with this one, so far with 2 episodes down, like in both these episodes, we see like these montages near the second half of each episode, with them like going from point A to point B and passing some time. There are some important dialogue scenes that take place around that time frame concerning like their interactions with Ricia, and of course talking to Eclair, which they go over her backstory a little bit. But it seems like with this episode they kind of just only go through like a small snippet of her backstory and then just moved on from there. Now I could be wrong, but it's possible that they could rearrange this into a later episode to explain her backstory. Same thing that we will find out about Ricia's backstory based on what the trailer showed us. But it just seems like that's my impression of where the season is going for now.
Yeah, like I said, I kind of hope that it is just rearranged a bit. But I guess we'll have to see with what they do with that. But yeah, this episode kind of just starts where the last one left off with, we find out her name later, and but for now we don't really know who she is, the mysterious woman that comes up and asks Naofumi to kill her. And we really don't get much of an elaboration on that because not too long after that, she ends up just kind of disappearing. It's she does show up later though.
Yeah.
So.
So first, like Naofumi and the Queen meet up with, I guess, the generals or the lords of the surrounding nations to discuss their plan to deal with the Spirit Tortoise. And of course, they go back and forth and like discussing and what's the best way to deal with them. Whether like they take like their entire armies to go after the Spirit Tortoise, which honestly, like at first glance, when you look at the Spirit Tortoise, it's a freaking titan. Like you can't just like.
Well, they even mentioned later that they can't really defeat it with conventional weaponry, and that's why they need like the heroes to help them take it down.
Yeah, but after what happened in the last episode, like Motoyasu, Itsuki, and Rin are pretty much like they just flat out refuse to even help out with this whole situation. So now Fumi is like the only person that can help out.
But we do learn that there are more heroes.
Yeah, we do learn from the Queen that there are 7 other heroes called the 7-star heroes. Supposedly, they were also summoned or isekai'd from another Earth, similar to Naofumi, and they also possess like various different weaponries, which reminds Naofumi of of the other heroes that he went up against in the last season, like Glass or Lark and any other heroes. But they seem to be like other heroes with different weaponries. But as of right now, they don't know whether or not that they will make it in time to help out in the upcoming battle against the Tortoise.
Yeah, there is quite a bit of exposition here about the Tortoise, and of course, as we mentioned, they go over the other heroes, and then of course it's not really too long after they start like having this meeting when this the same woman we saw at the beginning of this episode shows up again, and I keep forgetting what her name is. It was like
her name is Osthorai.
Yeah, because it's a weird name, Osthorai. Yeah.
Yeah. So she mentions that she's a familiar of the Spirit Tortoise, meaning that she's like a vessel, like that speaks on behalf of the Spirit Tortoise. But she and of course she reveals like what the Spirit Tortoise purpose was like her purpose was to integrate into society by becoming like a concubine to a lord of a certain region, and then she uses her I guess her persuasion to start wars or different conflicts, which which in a way for the spirit tortoise to collect souls, and then like it has this ability to permanently stop the waves if it like accumulates a certain amount of power.
Yeah. But we learned that apparently the reason why the spirit tortoise has woken up again is not supposedly not because not of its own will, but apparently because somebody had broken its seal and woken it up. But of course, as for right now, we don't know who that was or who's behind waking up the spirit tortoise.
Yeah, I mean, we do get a glimpse of who it possibly might.
Yeah, we do see this
be.
one character that we kind of saw in the opening with this guy that wears glasses, and I'm assuming maybe he's going to be a villain or something.
Yeah, but yeah, so Ost suggests that because like the spirit tortoise is rampaging against its will, she suggests that the heroes and the armies of the different regions help out to stop the thing permanently. And she suggests like somehow decapitating the thing, which I don't know how you can really do that with a Titan that size. But yeah, this leads to like the rest of the lords to start arguing amongst each other and how they should go about like attacking this thing, which they unfortunately they don't really come up with a consensus to beat this thing. So Naofumi just pretty much like storms out, just out of annoyance from all of this arguing. But yes, but of course, like later that night, like Raphtalia like has this conversation with Naofumi, pretty much, telling him that like the other lords are just pretty much worried about protecting their own homes against the spirit tortoise, and they're just trying suggesting different ways in how they can like save the entire region or whatever it is. And so pretty much like she just convinces Naofumi to just help out wherever he can.
Yeah. It pretty much does end up convincing Naofumi. To or at least to help them out. One thing that I was kind of wondering about too is like we never really get any kind of explanation as to why Ost wanted Naofumi to kill her. She did, of course, mention that she is like she is a familiar of the spirit tortoise, taking the form of a human, and that the spirit tortoise needs to be, or pretty much needs to be put down. But I don't know if that like I don't know. We never really get any, as far as I remember, like any explicit explanation as to why she wants Naofumi to kill her. So I'm still a little bit confused about that. So maybe it's something they kind of go a little bit more into later. But it was like I felt like kind of disappointed because that last episode left off on that cliffhanger, and it just feels like we never really get any kind of a solid explanation as to why she wants to die.
Yeah, I mean we will get a proper explanation to this whole thing regarding her and the history of the spirit tortoise and in relation with the other heroes. But as of right now, like Naofumi and the others, including like being of course being accompanied by the various armies around the neighboring nations, are pretty much like just heading to where the spirit tortoise is based at. And of course we're treated to this like this montage of them getting to point A to point P, which is kind of my like my complaint as to them doing this again after they did it in the last episode. Because there is a lot of like dialogue exposition that happens around that time frame, and it just seems questionable as to why they're just rushing it like this. I mean, I can understand it just due to the fact that this season is 13 episodes, and it's probably because they're having to cut time. But it just seems like that there could have been a lot of opportunity for them to go through that kind of detail. especially like with Eclair, which we do get to kind of learn about a little bit, which which of course we learned that her last name is Sayet, which we find out that she's the daughter of a lord that oversaw Raphtalia's village. But of course, unfortunately, we don't get too much from that as of right now.
Yeah, the only thing we really learned about her is that she was a knight of Melromark, and she was assigned by the queen to help out with Naofumi's village to train like Raphtalia and Rishia how to use the sword. That's pretty much it, though. But maybe we'll get some of that information in the next episode, I'm kind of hoping, or maybe sometime later. But yeah, that's pretty much all we get from her for now, unfortunately. Because she was like one of the newer characters, and I was hoping we would learn more about her. Because when we saw her in the first episode, I was like, wondering who she even was, and we don't really even find that out until this episode.
Yeah, and of course, she does play a prominent role, like in relation to one of the other heroes. But I won't reveal that until like later in the season, assuming if they will adapt that part. But yeah, so the episode just pretty much ends with like Naofumi and the others like just camping out, interacting with each other, and it ends like like it literally just ends abruptly out of nowhere with Naofumi and the others talking to Rishia about her relationship with Itsuki and stuff, and then Oz suggesting that she's in love and should basically just take the initiative and tell Itsuki how she feels and stuff. But the episode ends just with the spirit tortoise just letting out its roar, and then it just stops right there.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird ending. I kind of wish it didn't really end like that, because I was kind of surprised when it was over. But yeah, I'm not really sure how to feel about this episode. Like it was okay. Like I don't know. Like it felt like it was very dialogue heavy, and some of the stuff we learned is interesting. But aside from that, there's not really much else. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of exposition about the spirit, the spirit tortoise, and we still, of course, don't know everything about it yet. And we kind of learned a little bit more about this woman, Ost. Although there's still some weird things about her that I kind of wish were maybe a little bit more gone into, but maybe they're saving that for later. Yeah, it felt like a little bit just mostly just set up for stuff that's going to happen later, and not too much else. So yeah, I am kind of annoyed now that I know about some of the stuff that was cut. And I kind of wish that maybe they could have sacrificed some things if they needed more time to include some of these dialogue scenes instead that seemed to be kind of important, instead of kind of glossing over it the way they did. But yeah, I don't know. I thought it was like I said, it was an okay episode, but not as entertaining as the first one was. This was just more, like I said, mostly set up for what's going to happen later, I guess. Not too much else to say about it. So I don't know if you have anything else to say.
Yeah, I just hope they know what they're really doing, trying to adapt this part, because I think they're trying to get around some corners, and after they rearranged the scene with Naofumi already becoming the Lord of Sayet this soon, compared to him being becoming the Lord of that region after the Spirit Tortoise arc. So it's just it probably has something to do with them just rearranging that entire scene in relation to that. But yeah, I mean, we'll hopefully we'll get to find out a little bit more. I mean, just this episode, it leaves the viewer a lot more questions than it did with answers.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt about it. There are some things I wish they would have elaborated a little bit more on. But again, like I said, maybe they're saving that for later. So yeah, I guess that all being said, guys, until next Wednesday, we will see you all next time.